Hi, this is Misha.
And this is Jay.
And this is episode 4 of Discussion at the Range. And today we had a selection of IWI, Galil Ace pistols, and rifles, and all 3 calibers to try out. We didn't figure we'd have all of these again, so we figured we'd shoot them all back to back and then discuss our feelings on them. We have a 308 Carbine. We have a 5.56 NATO Carbine. We have a 5.56 NATO Pistol with factory installed folding rubber arm brace. And we have the same here. This is in 7.62-39 pistol, again with the factory folding brace. We do not have the 7.62-39 carbine anymore, but we do have an older video on that, so we do have some experience shooting that one. The only one we have not owned and shot is the 308 pistol, because why? You know, 8.5 inch barrel 308. You might as well just have 7.62-39 in my opinion.
Might as well.
All right, so that's my intro. What do you think?
Well, a lot of these Discussion at the Range videos are us kind of having maybe some different opinions on a particular gun or series of guns. In this case, I think we're going to have some very similar opinions and overlapping opinions on a series of guns that we didn't really have necessarily an appreciation of whenever we first encountered them last year or so, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked the original Galil.
Mm-hmm.
I have had a couple of pre-bands Magnum Research Action Arms. I've actually sold them all over the years because I think they're going for ridiculous money now. I have a really good build that Hibley Firearms, Jeff, did, and that's kind of replaced my pre-bands. And I've got the LM5, which was, even though it's an import, significantly cheaper. But a lot of people go gaga over the Galil, and I've always liked it without being in love with it.
Right.
So yeah,
the
Ace came out, it was just a thing.
I've never owned a Galil. The 223 AK in my collection that dominates my collection right now is the Polish barrel, or the Archer, and that to me has given me basically no reason to go back to the old Galil rifles. So what turned a corner on this, I think, is we got a hold of you got a hold of the pistol back. It would
have been November of 15. That was one of the Gen 1s that ended up being recalled. And we have a interrupted video. We did the table talk on it, but before we could do the range shoot, they did a recall. So
we never got to shoot that one. Then we got a hold of the Carbine sometime later.
That was the spring or early summer of 16, yeah. So a little over a year and a half ago, call it, yeah.
I've always really liked the way the Ace series looks. I think they look really cool.
I can't say that.
I was really looking forward to shooting the 7.62x39 carbine when it came in.
Me too.
And we both found it to be very punchy. The recoil, we actually had an AKM out at the same time.
We had my SAR-1, yeah.
An old SAR-1.
With an old worn out, it has 8,000 rounds to it and still on its original recoil spring, so
lightweight stamped receiver.
No muzzle brake.
No muzzle brake. And we shot that side by side with that 7.62x39.
Same ammo.
Ace Carbine, same ammo, and we both found it to be very punchy and unpleasant. And it actually put me off the line altogether until the Ace 308 came in. And when the Ace 308 came in, we took it out to the range. I thought, well, 7.62x39, that kind of sucked. 308's going to suck more. But I actually found the Ace 308 to be much more shootable. Very controllable, very manageable recoil impulse on it. Having a muzzle brake on it and the recoil pad helps a lot.
Yeah, it does.
But it just doesn't have that kind of jarring punch like the 7.62x39 did.
And we got that in, I think it was May or June of last summer, because it was a few months after the X39 Carbine.
And it was in your shop for all of that day, basically, and then it went home with me.
I actually already had done the paperwork on him that day. He just didn't know it. I knew he was going to probably, because he'd been talking about it.
Yeah, I'd wanted a 308 Ace even before I shot the 7.62x39, so it was kind of heartbreaking to shoot the 7.62x39, and that put me off of buying this until I actually shot it. And from an accuracy standpoint, with Silver Bear ammunition, 148 grain, I believe, is what I was shooting out of it originally. And
guys, we're going to see a lot of us shooting steel out of these. Yep. I know a lot of that gets to... Remember, these are AKs, at least at their core, so they should eat steel.
Right. No issues with that Silver Bear. I was getting about 1.5 groups consistently. My practical accuracy standard is shooting clay targets at 100 yards, and I was able to do that with every pull of the trigger. So really good accuracy with that. I switched up to 145 grain Wolf today. The groups opened up to more like 2 inches, but it was a consistent 2 inches. And then I was able, with this Primary Arms ACSS reticle cranked up to 6, I was able to consistently hit a 12-inch steel plate at 200 yards. So
Battlefield accurate.
Definitely.
But, yeah, not as good. He was commenting quite a bit about how the Wolf just wasn't, up to snuff with the Silver Bear.
The groups opened up quite a bit. But with the Silver Bear ammunition, I've heard that these favor a lighter ball. With the Silver Bear lighter ball, it seemed like it's very, very accurate. I'm very pleased with the accuracy. The trigger is the same in all of these. I don't think we noticed any difference between the carbines and the pistols.
It's all. They say it's the same trigger they put in their sniper guns. I guess it's a machined double hook trigger, very AK pattern. It has kind of really the shape is pretty reminiscent of a Tapco, but whereas a Tapco is a cast trigger, this is a true forged machined one. So it's not a match trigger, but it is a very nice battlefield military trigger, and since it is machined, you could potentially work it over, or it'll wear in itself and probably be even nicer after a few more rounds.
I've been really pleased with this as fulfilling that kind of 308 battle rifle type role.
If you can't tell, this is Jay's personal gun, and he's had it since he got it off of me 6 months ago, give or take. And how many rounds have you put through
About
it?
1,200 rounds. No failures, no hitches whatsoever. This uses I think this is LR25.
SR25.
SR25? Yeah. The SR25
They're the mag
style
pulls.
mags.
Yeah.
These are just Magpul magazines, so very easy to find, and I think I bought them on sale for about $18 a piece. So
Yeah, they're
very
not
expensive.
much.
25 rounds, and I believe it comes with a 20. So.
Just as a note, I had no idea you had a scope on this at the beginning. I was like, what is touching my face? Oh! So yeah, we got to the 308s, and then of course, it seemed like IWI was intentionally releasing these in reverse order of what people wanted. They did the X39, and then the 308 pistol, then the 308 rifle, then finally the 5.56 pistol, which we brought out today. Jay picked one of those up here about a month ago. We ordered it in from Atlantic. Shameless plug for Blaine out there, who I've known for 12 years. And so he's been shooting his 5.56, and like a lot of people, the 5.56 guns were always kind of what interested me because of my my pre-bands and my other experiences and kit builds and stuff, and just kind of commonality with it. So I know we shot it at your place, and we did that one video just kind of introducing it. And how many rounds have you put through it now, you think?
It's had about 200 rounds.
200? Yeah, so just getting broken in, really.
Sure.
Or just now maybe getting all that crayon Cosmoline out of it.
Yep. That's an interesting thing about these is everyone that we've handled, particularly the pistols that have come in, have this crayon-smelling Cosmoline that is super sticky. It gets everything on it. It's gross. It's real gross. But hey, at least they're preserved, right?
Yeah, there's no rust. I mean, between that and the paint finish that's on these, and the park under that, hey, at least they're trying to keep these guns. They do. They all come in looking very good, very straight, even. So yeah, Jay's pistol originally came with a flash hider, like all of them. He decided to put a muzzle brake on it. What's the brand of that?
This is a VG6 Gamma muzzle brake, and it's supposed to be a combo device, which is muzzle brake and flash hider.
By the way, guys, whenever I ask him a name, it's not for the camera. I'm an idiot when it comes to this modern tactical stuff. I'm a history military guy, so I really don't know that stuff well.
I typically look at some reviews, buy something that looks right, try it out, and then immediately forget what it's called and everything about it as well. So that's what this is. I believe it's VG6 Gamma. This is supposedly a combo brake. It works really well for reducing felt recoil. I would say this was real close to the CZ805 Bren pistols. A very very smooth
Close,
shooting, already
yeah.
close, but a little bit punchier, and I think that has to do with the bolt movement.
Yeah, you have a well, the Bren does have a large. Yeah, I guess it's
Well,
still
once-
a
I think
little
once you-
Larger.
Once you combine
Yeah.
the gas piston,
Mm-hmm.
then you have a little bit of mass moving back and forth, so it's a little bit jumpy. Not bad though at all. Still very smooth for a pistol.
I think the 805 was a little better balanced, is what I mean. Like it's more of an inline, like an AR, where this is, of course, is an AK, where it's more on the
Right.
top. It's
Yep.
moving.
I would agree with that. So I put a brake on there to kind of tamper down that last little bit of recoil, but honestly, it was like getting hit with a warm, wet pillow in the face every time that we shot it. So I ended up doubling up on my hearing protection and all that stuff. So
I ended up walking behind the car. Okay, I'm behind your car, so if it's bad over here, then we know it's bad.
it doesn't seem loud to me. It's just smacking my sinuses.
Hand's getting warm.
Yeah, that muscle brake will warm you up real quick.
Oh yeah.
It was pretty rough. I'm gonna put another flash hider back on it. Will be probably what I'll end up
Because
doing.
it wasn't unpleasant. And how did that work as a flash hider? You said it was a combo device.
It's still a lot of flash.
So it didn't
still a lot of
even
flash.
really do a lot on the flash.
No, there's not. I mean, you're limited on what you can do with a short-barreled rifle caliber anyway.
Yeah, that's again 8.5 inches. So,
But
oof.
yeah, I'll definitely be putting something to mitigate the blast of the muzzle on this for now. But I did like the device though. I would put it on a rifle in a heartbeat.
Well, when he was, we were actually down here at the range when he ordered that 5.56 from Atlantic, the wonders of cell phones and modern buying, and they had the carbine, and I almost stuck the carbine on the order too, but I thought, no, I'm not going to do it. Well, after getting that pistol in and shooting it at his place, just briefly, only 100 rounds or so, maybe, I guess it's about 60, about 3 boxes. I liked it enough that about a week later I broke down and ordered the carbine from Atlantic, and it actually came in yesterday, so just in the nick of the time for this range session. Again, I'm going to shamelessly plug Atlantic. I told them, hey, I really could use this before Friday, and they got it here, and they were in the middle of, I think, an ATF audit. They weren't doing anything wrong. It's just the ATF likes to visit us dealers and say hello. But so they were occupied, and they still got it out on time. And the reason I'm mentioning it is this day and age, it seems like the business is getting very corporatized, and people are no longer customers by names. They're just customers by numbers. So anytime I find a smaller business that treats people like people and knows their name and does custom little things for their orders, it really impresses me. And by far, Atlantic is not the only one. But I'm just so tired of calling up my distributors and just giving them an order number and them not. I mean, we're not even talking in words anymore. It's all just numbers, and I think it's really cool. So they got the carbine out, and we got it out today and put our first rounds to it.
It's very comparable to the pistol as far as the recoil impulse, the smoothness of the action, just the overall feel of these. All of these really is just a very solid feel. I mean, they aren't the cheapest guns, but they feel their price tag. I mean, they feel like a very solid, well-built. They feel like a tank.
They're sturdy. No, like nothing moves. The handguards don't move. Even these folding braces that you see me move, they're very solid for being a brace. Mags fit in without really any play at all. Yep. triggers are good. But at the same time, they're very smooth. Like
Yes.
the bolts and everything.
Everything's very smooth.
It's not stiff. It's not gritty. It's smooth but solid.
Yep.
So I would agree with that. And I would say, obviously, I can't say much to the accuracy of the carbine. What would you say about accuracy versus your pistol?
So shooting the carbine with iron sights, and I shot the pistols with iron sights as well. The only one that's scoped or has an optic on it at all is the 308. The accuracy of the carbine was, with the ammo we were shooting, it's about 2-inch groups, which is exactly what I would expect out of this style of rifle.
And that's again with what ammo were you shooting?
I was shooting soft point, Wolf, WPA Wolf, whatever the lightest grain is that they've got. So decidedly not match grade accurate. I would expect that those groups to tighten up a little bit. I will say that even with iron sights, well, let me back up a little bit. The sights on all of these are awesome. They have tritium inserts.
Front and back.
Front and rear and front. They're very easily adjustable, and of course, the rear aperture flips. I like the sights well enough on the pistol to decide to not run it with any type of red dot or anything like I normally would with a pistol. I'll just run it with the stock optics. I actually kind of hated to cover up the iron sights on the 308 because I like the optics so much.
And keep in mind, they don't fold and they are not removable. The rear looks like you could.
The rear is removable
with a tool.
Yes,
but it's not folding and quick remove.
Right.
The front, again, you could unscrew the post, but the ears are there to stay unless you machine them off.
They do sit a little low, so if you
if you look, the rail does come up, so yeah, you can get around it.
And that's another thing to mention too is with a standard height optics mount for an AR, not only will you clear the sights, rear, front, and rear, but the nice thing about it is the rifles come with a cheek piece, so you can get a very nice cheek weld when you're aiming down the sights on a standard height optics mount for
and
an AR.
it comes on and off very easily, but it still fits quite, because it has 4 points of contact. It just snaps on and off.
And another cool thing about it is you can mount it there's a forward position on it and a rear position on it that you can lock that into. So you can get it positioned exactly where you want it. So, that said...
About these sights, I was just going to add, too, it's kind of a funny story. These sights began on the Mini Uzi. The sights are straight off the Mini Uzi. And how they ended up on the Ace, they were copied over to the Micro Galil. Because why not? They were originally made for a submachine gun, and the Micro Galil was a subgun just in 5.56. And the Ace itself is more a Micro Galil. It's really just a Micro Galil, just modern stuff like rails. But it's more a Micro Galil than it is, say, a Galil AR. So that's how these sights, and that's why they're not overly complicated, but they are adjustable, and these each gun comes with a sight tool. So, and adjusting the front sight, you can pretty much do by hand. I mean, you can hold down the knot, the detent, and just rotate, so it screws up and down.
And the front sight post is a 2-piece front sight post, so you can adjust it while also keeping the tritium lined up.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little ring that you can keep. Or I guess if you didn't want it, you could rotate it out of the way.
Sure.
And same with the rear. If you don't want the tritium, only one of these two peeps has tritium. So if you don't want it, just flip it to the other peep.
Yep, and it's the closer range aperture that has the tritium in it, so which would make sense.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot on long range nighttime. I bet I would do good just as well as anyone at long range nighttime sniping. But yeah, that's also where things like this cutout and the bolt comes from, this lightning cut, and this FNC style dust cover, and this left side charger. These are all features that appeared on the late Micro Galils. Sorry guys, it's me, I love history, can't help it.
So the sights are good sights. Shooting the 223 carbine at 200 yards at the 12-inch steel plate, I had no issues hitting it. Front sight post is pretty thick. but it does taper to a point. So the 12-inch plate at 200 yards, basically the tip of the front sight post just covered the plate. And once I figured out where I was hitting with that, I was able to hit it consistently. Now with the scoped 308, I had absolutely no issues hitting the steel plate pretty much every shot. So,
and replacing the front sight, if someone made an aftermarket or if you bought a spare and just filed it down manually, is super easy. These just screw in, so you could potentially have different front sight post diameters if you needed it.
Yep.
But so yeah, we have shot all these now. Obviously, we don't have a lot of trigger time with the carbine. Oh, one other thing to mention about the 5.56s that they have that the others do not is the bolt hold open. And I really like where the release control's at. I think it's ergonomically very nicely placed, and it's a very simple and robust, if you look inside one of these, very robust bolt hold open system. I don't see it breaking under normal use ever.
And it's in a very ergonomic position to where you can reach up and push it down with your trigger finger.
Yeah, and by the way, we talked about the 308 mags, but the 5.56s all feed from standard AR-15 mags, and the X39s, of course, feed from AK mags. I brought out some of these new Polish WBP mags to try them today, and these and a few other guns, and they work great. They fit tight, but not too tight, and of course, these are rock-in. The other ones are straight in on the 223 and 308s, but... So yeah, all of these guns take as common of a mag as they could find for each caliber.
So we brought basically the entire caliber family out today.
Yep.
In a range of pistols to carbine. We definitely wanted to give the 7.62 by 39 pistol its own shake this time, since we've shot the carbine before and didn't have a chance to shoot the pistol before. And our impressions on the 7.62 by 39 carbine were a little negative based on, like I said, the felt recoil of it. What did you think of the pistol?
You know, we talked about it when we were on the way down, and we were saying, well, maybe that carbine was overgassed.
That was our assumption with that.
Because if you look at YouTube, very few people are talking about its recoil. But the thing is, if you've watched our channel at all, you know we shoot quite a bit of 7.62 39 out of quite a few different guns. Mostly AKs, of course, because that's what is... But anything, we've pretty much shot... So we're pretty accustomed to how that feels. And we thought, especially for as heavy as a Galil is, I wouldn't say these are pigs, but they're bumping 8 pounds, to have that kind of felt recoil was ridiculous. And we thought, well, maybe it was a fluke. So that's why we give another chance with this pistol. And again, we think it's a little punchy. Not as punchy as the carbine, I'd say. But you have a shorter barrel. We'll get into reasons why in maybe a minute here, but still, it compared to say like a Yugo M92 PV or a mini Draco or even a full-size Draco, it just seems like these are punchier and they're even heavier. And usually, the heavier the gun, the less felt recoil.
Yep. So even shooting it, because we shot these back to back to back, even shooting the X39 pistol back to back with the 308 NATO or the 7.62 NATO, it seemed like the 308 actually had less felt recoil. It was definitely easier to keep on target than the 7.62.
We kind of had the excuse with the carbine, the X39 carbine, that it didn't have a muzzle brake and it had just a simple plastic butt pad. Well, this does not have a muzzle brake like the 308, but this brace is effectively a rubber butt pad. So even with that rubber pad, I wouldn't say it's to the point of being unpleasant, but it is a little jumpy, more than it needs to be.
It was very difficult with aim shots to keep the muzzle. I was having to constantly adjust to keep the muzzle on target. And again, I don't have that issue with either the 223 or the 308. So we're starting to think maybe that's endemic to the 7.62 by 39 platform on these aces.
I think it's because these are intentionally over-gassed, just a smidge. Whereas with the 308 and the 223 guns, the IWI has a pretty good expectation that people will be using brass case ammo, which is a little hotter. they know, they're intelligent enough that most people who buy these are going to be shooting steel case, because that's 95% of what's out there in X39. And even with the steel, you have Golden Tiger and Silver Bear, sure, yeah. But there's Tula, which used to be carried at Walmart, so it's very common, and there's Wolf, which is still at a lot of sporting goods stores, and both Tula and Wolf are known to be a little light-loaded on occasion. So I have a feeling that they sacrificed a little bit of comfort in shooting these to have a larger gas port to ensure good cycling reliability.
That's the only thing that I can assume, because, again, we've shot these back-to-back with standard stamped AKMs that come in lighter, and those don't recoil nearly as much. So, and it's not an unpleasant.
No, it's
thing.
Not like it's battering your shoulder.
No.
It's more, it's just jumping around.
Right.
It's not so much the beating on you. It's just the muzzle wants to flip and rise, and it just wants to rock and roll a little more.
Yep. And so, if you have one of these and you love it, the 7.62x39, that's awesome. I mean, we're not here to say, somebody shouldn't like these. But having shot the entire family now, the X39 is my least favorite to shoot. And it's the only one at this point I don't have in the collection, because I've added the 223 pistol in addition to the 308.
Wait, you don't have an X? I already did the paperwork on this before we showed up today, just like that. I figured you were going to want this. So.
This is all getting cut.
No, this needs to be in there. Don't let him cut it, guys. So yeah, I would agree. The X39 pistol or carbine is my least favorite as well. So what's your favorite?
The 308 for me. I love shooting the 223, but the 308 to me fills that SCAR 17 hole in my collection. Basically, it's not a SCAR. I don't think it's quite as smooth as a SCAR. Again, it's $1,000 less than a SCAR. But as far as being a high-end 308 that's really exceptionally accurate, I find the 308 to do basically everything I need it to do for a 308, and it is a pleasure to shoot. It's a ton of fun. And
308 carbine.
The 308 carbine. Have not shot the pistol.
Yeah. Again, why?
Why? Yeah.
I am going to have to go. If I could shoot for accuracy, I believe I would go with 308 as well, but since it's not really within my scope, I'm going to go with the 5.56 carbine. I find the 5.56 pistol to also be pleasant, but I never have been a huge fan of crank type guns. I mean, I don't hate them, but I've always kind of liked rifles more. So with it being equal and the price pretty much being the same, I'm going to go with the 5.56 carbine. I will probably be logging that out to myself and throwing it in the collection. I figure it'll keep my ARM and my LM5 company. It's, I don't know, kind of seems a natural progression of that same series. I do wish the carbines had the 18-inch barrel, not the 16, but c'est la vie. Most of your pre-bands from the 80s had 16s as well. Yep. Only the early 18s did. Well, before we go, we thought we would kind of talk about where the Ace stands with its competition in the market as of November of 2017. Yep. So let's start with the X39 since it came first. Obviously, its biggest competitions would be AKs. There's not really much else out there chambered for X39. And I would argue this is about the most modern tactical gun in this caliber that's actually serious and available. I mean, there's probably a couple of Kel-Tec offerings and other things that are small production batches and just strictly civilian, but this is built by a military contractor that expects these to be road hard and put up wet.
Yeah, I think the only thing you could probably compare this to would be a custom shop, a custom shop AK build. Because
like Krebs or a Definitive
something
Arms.
Like that. Yep. Because this has, you already have an integrated rail system. You have awesome sights. It's really, you have the ambi safety. You
got these side rails.
The side rails in the front.
Sorry guys, my fingers are a little cold. But yeah, these have rails here and they come with the covers. These handguards might look a little fat. They're really not as fat. I don't have big hands and they're comfortable to me. And if you pull your rails off, they slim up real fast.
And I added a stubby foregrip to the 308, and I use that basically just as a hand stop with the kind of C-clamp grip, and it works really well. Very comfortable.
I would say there's one other gun on the market. This, as a carbine, has a folding stock. It has a milled receiver. It has a chrome-lined hammer-forged barrel. It has a thumb safety. And there's one other gun on the market that's pretty much similar, and that would be the Arsenal SAM-7 SF.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little bit cheaper, but not by much. We're talking 100, maybe 200 difference at most between those two guns.
Yep.
So the Galil comes in a little bit more expensive, but not enough. I'm sure you would spend that on just putting rails on the front. So I would say if you want a tactical 7.6239, those are your only two options outside of, like, as you said, custom guns.
Yep. So what about the 223?
The 223?
Yep.
I would say it stands in a much bigger market because there's so many. Our market is so flooded with 223s right now.
Yep.
It since it is based on the AK, I would say it most favorably, can be easily compared with the Archer, which is no longer coming in, so it's kind of going away. Same for a lot of the Segas. There are Veprs in 223 available, but they're unconverted. They never got around to doing the FM series in 223.
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course, you just have things like the Bren, the CZ805 Bren. There's still the FN Scar 16, which is, again, quite a bit more expensive. So I'd say in that market, it really does get down to more personal taste.
Mm-hmm.
And while they're not exorbitantly expensive in that market, they're not cheap either. They're pretty middle of the road for a non-AR-15.
I think for the 223, it's probably, I think this most reminds me of two different guns. As far as the overall feel, the trigger, the recoil impulse. The Bren is one, the 805 Bren, very similar in recoil impulse to the Bren. Don't think the trigger is quite as good as the Bren.
No, I would agree.
Balances well. And the SIG 551 or 551A1.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that, and it's literally sitting behind me.
Yep. It's very similar. I think the trigger feels very similar. It's a little bit heavier, but feels very similar, and the recoil impulse is very similar. I think accuracy-wise, they're also very similar. So to me, that I think that's the closer analog for the 223 version of the Galil Ace.
Unfortunately, the 551 and the 556 are also out of production.
Yep.
So it kind of falls in. I would say for the Archer, if we're kind of talking about, it falls in there too, because I'd say the Archer is maybe a little more accurate, wouldn't you?
I probably about the same, honestly.
Mm-hmm. I know it doesn't have a milled receiver, so it's got the, and some people really love milled, but...
Well, it has the 18-inch barrel versus the 16.
True.
But it uses a standard AK trigger.
Yeah. Usually I think they came with Tapcos, but...
The sights are a little... The optics rail is higher, which means your optics are going to sit higher.
The iron sights aren't near as good on the Archer.
Nope. And a lot harder to see because they're channeled through... If you have the rail system on it, they're channeled through a rail system, so you kind of have some light obscurity there. And then you also don't have the cheek riser. So there are some definite advantages.
I would say the biggest advantage to the Galil, it takes standard mags. The Archer takes... They were saying they were going to do an AR-15 magwell adapter for the Archer, but it never came to fruition. Thanks again, Radom USA.
Right. So this is not for a foreign design gun with with the AK reliability and the common caliber of 223, this is a pretty good alternative to some of the guns out there.
So what do you think about the 308, which I think is probably the most interesting comparison of all the different calibers?
Well, that's a good question. The 308 is almost in a class of its own in a way, because there's not many 308s of a non-AR design in this type of configuration. So in this
modern
class,
tactical.
This very modern,
Because if you think about it, guys, like the PTR 91, it's based on the G3, which is back in the 50s. The Springfield M1A is based in a design back in the 50s. Really, the Garand from the 30s. So they're pretty old.
So I have one of the roller delayed blowback 308s. It's nowhere near as accurate as this rifle is here. I've shot AR 308s, and I find the recoil impulse to be pretty punchy on them. I'm sure there are things that you can do to mitigate that.
Yeah.
This is head and shoulders above the ARs that I've shot. From a recoil standpoint, it's probably about the same as a PTR or another roller delayed G3. Probably very similar, but again, you don't have the mechanical accuracy in those that you do in this.
Plus, these are easier to mount optics on because you've got an integrated rail right here. That's
true.
I know you might think having a rail and a dust cover that comes up, but this seems to be a very stable.
It's very solid.
Yeah, surprisingly so.
So, it really, the closest comparison I would make to it would be the Scar, the Scar 17S, and good luck finding one of those for $1,900.
Yeah. And these days the 308s have really dropped down to $17.99 a lot of places. The Aces, excuse me.
The Aces, yeah.
Yeah, the Scars are still $2,500 plus. Even used, they still are well over $2,000.
Yeah, I'm mostly seeing them in the $2,800 range.
Yeah, and these take standard SR25 mags. The Scar takes extremely expensive proprietary and not even very good FN mags. I would say the Scar has weight. It's a little bit lighter going for it, and yet both have about the same recoil. The Scar might have a little bit lighter of a recoil impulse.
I think it does. I think a little bit. I think the Scar is still the smoothest 308 I've shot.
Well, I would say the bolt is smooth, but the trigger on the factory trigger on the Scar compared to the Galil beats its pants off. The Ace has a better factory trigger than the Scar.
What's an aftermarket Scar trigger cost? Like $300, $400, something like that?
At least $300. And there's been a lot of things about the stocks or needing to replace the lowers with different. There's most people who buy a Scar 17 end up putting a couple of $1,000s in it to get it where they want it.
Right.
Whereas I don't know what you could really do to the Galil. It's pretty good to go out of the box.
Yep, I agree.
Either you love it or you don't how it's configured, but there's not a lot you would or can change on it.
Right.
It is what it is. Oh, one thing to say, and this is the same kind of thing with the Scar. These have a reciprocating charging handle.
Yep.
Which doesn't bug us at all. But some people really don't like reciprocating charging handles. One neat thing, the slot is always covered up by this dust cover. So there's not really a chance of ingress of debris. And the side's completely sealed up too.
Yep.
So yeah, we just thought we'd have fun getting these out. Try to bring a different review now that all the versions of the Ace are finally here. Yay. Only took 2 years.
A long wait.
Yeah, it was. But reliability is pretty much 100% with all of them. Yeah, as we said, in the 223, with AR prices as cheap as they are, I can't really say this brings much to the table that an AR wouldn't. Right. So if you just want a 223, get an AR.
Right.
If you want something different and cool, and I think imports are just inherently cool, this isn't priced bad. I mean, I think right now you can get the 223 Carbine for about $1,600 and the Pistol for about $1,500.
Yeah.
Brand new. And that's with a brace.
And a lot of people will scoff that price, and that's not a cheap amount of money. But
no.
for as well built as they are, and as fun as they are to shoot, if you can get into that entry price, I think they're totally worth it. Just pick the caliber you want to roll with, and I don't think you can go wrong.
Nope. And the X39s are even a little cheaper than that, and I would say, well, compare this to, say, a Krebs. I mean, you can't get into a Krebs new for under $2,000.
Right.
So compared to custom guns, it's a fantastic deal.
Yep.
As I already said, it's not much more than an Arsenal. I think it's a great option in the the 7.6239, just because there aren't that many non-standard AKs. Even though we said it's our least favorite, that doesn't mean we don't like it. It's just, if you want that caliber for whatever reason. Oh, and I would say, since I'm holding the pistol, out of an 8.5-inch barrel, 7.6239 performs pretty dang well because it hits its terminal velocity earlier than a lot of other cartridges. So it works well. So if you're wanting a shorty, it really is a good option compared to other 8.5-inch barrel guns, because any of them are going to have a lot of muzzle flash and recoil with that short.
Yep.
And yeah, as I said, the 308, again, it's kind of in a class of its own, and all 308s are expensive.
All very high quality 308s. I mean, you could
even
say
the cheap ones.
If you make you could make a case for like the Century C308s or whatever. But to me, again, the accuracy potential on those are just not. there, really.
Yeah, well, let's say this. 308's built from all new parts. Because like a C308 is built from a lot of surplus parts and, that. But all new manufactured guns, and even AR-10s, which are starting to kind of become everywhere, they're still quite a bit more than the 223 variants.
Yep.
So, it's not really priced any higher, and it's actually quite a bit cheaper than, say, like a Fulton Arms M14.
Right.
And it's definitely a more modern design.
And there's not a lot of standardization in 308s. So getting an Ace with its own unique parts, I mean, it is an AK still at its heart, but...
Yeah, and it takes a lot of common, like the trigger group components are AK, so...
Yeah, there you go.
What else are you going to... I see people talking about replacement parts and worrying about them, especially now with the MOLOT sanction, worrying about where they're going to get replacement parts for their Veprs and AKs and stuff. What breaks? I mean, aside from springs needing to be replaced as it is on anything, there's just... And I think since IWI is a well-established company, they'll be around to support it, knock on wood, for a long time. I think they will.
And they are exporting these to other countries. So
they have military contracts.
They're still being made in other countries, so parts I think will be out there.
And I've dealt with IWI's customer support. They were fantastic. We had... one of the 9mm conversion kits come in for the Tavor. The barrel wrench had been lost in shipping. The box got a hole and fell out. And I offered to pay for it, and they said no. And they not only sent me a replacement, they even drop shipped it to the customer.
Nice.
So, my one experience with their customer service has been good. So I think if you have an issue, they'll take care of you, based on my limited experience. This is one of our longer, discussions at the range, but we had a lot of guns to talk about today. Usually we just compare two.
Yeah, we've got 4 here today, so...
Yeah, so, if you have any questions or want to share your own Ace comments or pictures or stories, that'd be awesome. And if you liked the video, please click like.
Yeah, if you want to see more type of this content, please subscribe. We've got a lot of videos coming out every week.
And we're happy to take suggestions. If you'd like to see something and we can do it, we'll try to get it in the schedule. We usually run a month or two behind just because we're busy, but... We'll do it. But as always, we really appreciate you tuning in. And by the way, it is legal to put these against your shoulder again. This is a nice trigger.
That's really good. I have no complaints with it.
This is Misha.
And this is Jay.
We'll catch you next time.
See ya.